What if the ugliest cars from the 70s, yes, the chrome-laden land yachts, padded-roofed monsters, and vinyl-wrapped oddballs, are now the ones raking in the biggest bucks? In the golden era of American muscle, GM gave us legends like the Chevelle SS, GTO Judge, and Camaro Z28. But in the shadows, buried under opera windows, vinyl roofs, and awkward proportions, lurked a weirder breed. These weren't the beauties of the strip, they were the misfits of the lot. Mocked for their looks, overlooked at auctions, and dismissed for decades. But something changed. Nostalgia struck. Survivors became rare. And suddenly, the ugliest GM muscle cars of the 1970s became collector gold. Today, on Top 5 Classic Cars, we're counting down 10 of the most awkward, offbeat, and downright bizarre GM muscle machines that were once laughed off the showroom floor, only to return decades later with price tags that would make a Chevelle jealous. Top 1, 1977, Pontiac Can-Am. It looked like a GTO in a costume, but under the fiberglass scoop was Pontiac's last great snarl. In 1977, Pontiac pulled off something few muscle cars could. It got weirder, uglier, and more desirable. The Can-Am started life as a Lehman's, but with help from Jim Wangers and Motortown Corporation, it was reborn into a one-year freak, complete with a fiberglass shaker hood, white body, tricolor stripes, and screaming orange graphics. It was awkward, it was loud, it was perfect. Power came from the Pontiac 400 V8, or the 403 Olds in emissions states, pumping out 200 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque, modest by early 70s standards, but wild for 1977. Pontiac planned to build over 5,000 units, but production stopped abruptly at just 1,137. Why? The custom fiberglass hood mold broke, and GM didn't want to fix it. The car was killed mid-run, turning it into an accidental rarity. Dealers couldn't get more. Buyers who missed out scrambled to find one. And those who got one? They unknowingly drove off in a future collector's trophy hidden in plain sight. For years, the Can-Am was dismissed as a graphic package mistake, but now, surviving examples fetch $50,000, $70,000, and collectors finally embrace its bizarre charm. It's the ultimate underdog, ugly overlooked and now nearly untouchable. Its massive hood scoop and rally wheels were once mocked. Today, they're iconic. But Pontiac wasn't the only one dressing up muscle in strange clothing. The next GM oddball came from Oldsmobile, armed with a 442 badge, colonnade styling, and a body that confused even the loyalists. Top 2, 1973 Oldsmobile Cutlass S442, colonnade. It wore the 442 badge proudly, but it looked more like it belonged in a boardroom than on a drag strip. In 1973, Oldsmobile rolled out the first colonnade-style Cutlass S442, marking a controversial new era. Gone was the fastback aggression of the late 60s. In came formal rooflines, thick pillars, and slab-sided proportions. Critics cried foul. Enthusiasts panned it as the 442 that lost its soul. But underneath the business-casual styling was real heat. Buyers could option the 455 Rocket V8, pushing 252 horsepower and 370-plus pound-feet of torque, depending on tuning and emissions setup. It came mated to a turbo 400 automatic or a 4-speed manual, with performance rear ends and rally suspension still available. While it looked like a retirement car, the 442 Colonnade was still a brawler. In magazine tests, a well-maptioned 455 PowerMount 442 ran 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds and nailed the quarter-mile in the 15-second range. Respectable, even as emissions and insurance fears gutted the muscle car market. Most buyers, however, ordered the milder 350 or 400 variants, making the real rocket-powered versions very rare. Approximately 10,000 Cutlass S442s were built in 1973, but few survive with the big block intact, and even fewer retain original paint, decals, or wheels. Today, these once-mocked machines can fetch $50,000, plus, when restored properly, especially those with factory air, Hurst shifters, and original trim. The Colonnade look that once doomed it, now part of its nostalgic charm. Still, Olds wasn't alone in controversial styling. Buick jumped in the same year, wider, heavier, bolder, and dropped a Stage 1 455 under one of the strangest muscle car silhouettes ever built. Top 3, 1974 Buick Century Grand Sport 455 Stage 1. It looked like it belonged in a bowling league, but bowled over anything in the next lane. In 1974, Buick gave the Century full colonnade treatment. Thick pillars, chunky chrome bumpers, and a grille that looked like it was lifted from a kitchen appliance. The rear glass sloped awkwardly, and the whole body sat high like it wore orthopedic shoes. It looked soft, even sleepy. But deep in the option sheet was a sleeper. The Grand Sport Stage 1 455 to 270 horsepower, 395 pound-feet of torque, functional ram air hood, heavy-duty suspension, and TH400 automatic. It may have looked like a dentist daily, but under the skin, it was still a brute. While most 74 Centuries left the lot with 350S or Olds 455S, the real Stage 1 455S were different beasts. Tighter valve springs, hotter cam, better breathing heads, nearly identical to the legendary 70 GS Stage 1 underneath. The result? Quarter-mile times in the mid-14s, and brutal mid-range torque that left lighter cars gasping. But Buick never marketed it hard. Most dealers didn't know what they had, and many Stage 1 cars were bought by older buyers who never used them the way they were built to be used. Fewer than 4,000 Grand Sport 455 Stage 1S were made in 1974, and genuine survivors are unicorns. When verified, they now fetch $35,000, $40,000 plus, with documented cars climbing higher. The styling may still divide opinions, but the performance is finally being respected. And just as Buick proved performance could hide beneath Grandpa's suit, Pontiac doubled down, reviving the GTO name on a colonnade coupe that fans still debate to this day. Top 4, 1973 Pontiac GTO Colonnade Coupe. It wore the GTO badge, but many claimed it didn't deserve the name. When Pontiac grafted the GTO badge onto the new Colonnade Coupe, fans weren't impressed. The boxy profile, massive 5 miles per hour bumpers, and squashed rear glass made it look bloated and bland. Gone was the aggression, replaced by corporate curves and awkward proportions. Still, under the skin, it packed a 400 or optional Super Duty 455 with real performance lurking beneath the padded vinyl. Despite its performance chops, the 1973 GTO faced backlash from purists who missed the raw Coke bottle styling of earlier years. Some even claimed Pontiac had killed the GOAT. Sales plummeted to just 4,806 units, with only a tiny fraction equipped with the top-tier 455. But those who got the SD 455 option discovered a factory street brawler disguised as a weekend cruiser, one capable of 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds and quarter miles in the high 14s. The 73 GTO became a punchline for years, until collectors started doing the math. Low production? Check. Real performance hardware? Check. Factory weirdness? Definitely. Today, well-optioned survivors command $35,000 to $45,000, with SD 455 models exceeding that. Its awkward styling is now a badge of honor. Proof it survived the muscle car purge, with torque intact. But Pontiac wasn't done being weird. Their next oddball ditched sharp lines for NASCAR curves, an oval-nosed Laguna that turned more heads on the track than it did at the showroom. Top 5, 1975 Chevrolet Laguna Type S3. It looked like a stock car, but most owners never pushed it past second gear. By 1975, Chevrolet had reshaped the Laguna into something wild, the Type S3. With its urethane aero nose, tunneled grille, and body-colored bumpers, it looked like it belonged on a NASCAR superspeedway, and it did. GM designed the front clip to cheat the wind, and racers like Cale Yarborough proved it worked. But for street buyers, it was a different story. Most S3s came with a 350 V8, making just 145 horsepower. You could option up to a 400 or even a 454, but the latter was rare and heavily neutered by emissions gear. Chevrolet never badged the car as a muscle model. It wasn't an SS, it wasn't an RS. The Laguna S3 was marketed as a personal performance coupe, a weird middle ground between Monte Carlo luxury and Chevelle aggression. And while it looked racy, the reality was slower, 0 to 60 in 9.5 to 10 plus seconds, depending on engine choice. but its NASCAR connection gave it lasting mystique. Only around 8,800 units were produced in 1975, making it a one-year wonder before GM pulled the plug on the Laguna entirely. For decades they were ignored, awkward-looking, hard to restore, and often rusted to death. But now, clean examples with big blocks and the right stripes are selling for $30,000, $45,000. NASCAR fans are driving interest even higher. Still, if the Laguna was NASCAR's forgotten son, Chevy's next coupe tried to go classy, with opera windows, chrome overload, and a Malibu badge that hid its muscle roots under a velvet curtain. Top 6. 1976 Chevelle Malibu Classic V8. It wore a tuxedo vinyl Landau roof, opera windows, chrome trim, but under that suit, the V8 barely whispered. By 1976, the Chevelle nameplate was dwindling. The top-tier Malibu Classic Coupe featured square headlights, padded vinyl roofs, wood-grain dashboard trim, and an interior designed more for chauffeured comfort than corner entry. Buyers could select from the base 305, the more common 350, and occasionally the 400 small block V8, each rated modestly due to emissions. Around 165 to 175 horsepower for the 350-400 engines, offering a softer, smoother delivery, but no grunt. Paired with a C4 automatic, soft suspension, and weighing just under 3,900 pounds, the performance was far from its 454 SS roots. Though cataloged as a sporty coupe, the Malibu Classic's muscle was merely cosmetic. 0 to 60 miles per hour runs took about 11 seconds, and it dragged through the quarter mile in a lethargic 17 seconds. Faster than the sluggish Squire wagon, yes, but still dismal. Despite nailed-down suspension and optional sporty appearance packages, its opera windows and plush cloth bench seats said airport limo, not track hero. Production numbers? Around 91,700 Malibu Classics, sedans, coupes, station wagons rolled off the line in 1976, with only a small fraction ordered with a big block V8. Most were driven gently and discarded by the 80s. Now, clean, rare V8-equipped coupes with low mileage fetch $30,000, 0 cents, prized by nostalgia-driven collectors who want sentiment over speed. But costlier though it may be, the Malibu Classic's muscle mimicry paled next to Buick's next entry. Still awkward, but this time fastback, funky, with a V8 or two hiding under strangely styled sheet metal. Top 7. 1975 Buick Skylark SR Coupe. It looked like a Nova wearing a tuxedo, and drove like it couldn't decide if it was sporty or senile. The 1975 Buick Skylark SR Coupe was Buick's attempt to blend performance cues into a compact personal coupe. But the result was weird. Based on the X-body platform shared with the Chevy Nova, the Skylark SR had a unique, fastback roofline, blocky rear proportions, and oddly formal touches like wire hubcaps and chrome accents in all the wrong places. Under the hood, you'd often find the base 231 Ci V6, but those who wanted some grunt could option a 260 or 350 cubic inch V8, with the 350 topping out around 155 horsepower. Not exactly earth-shattering. Though it wore SR badges that hinted at sportiness, the Skylark SR was all bark and no bite. It waddled through corners with soft suspension, took 11-12 seconds to hit 60 miles per hour, and offered none of the responsiveness you'd expect from a so-called performance trim. Despite looking sleek from certain angles, its proportions were off, too high in the rear, too narrow in the stance, and too soft in execution. Buick sold approximately 15,000 Skylark SR coupes in 1975, and most were forgotten by the early 80s. But now collectors are circling back, fascinated by its rarity and awkward charm. Clean, low-mileage V8 SRs have recently sold for $25,000, $30,000, with values expected to climb as the Nova-based classics gain heat. Its very weirdness has become its collector appeal. But if the Skylark SR tried too hard to be sporty, Chevy's next entry took the opposite route. Straight-line muscle buried inside a plain Jane body, hiding performance under decades of boxy anonymity. Top 8. 1974 Chevrolet Nova SS 350. It still said SS on the fender, but what was left under the hood barely qualified. By 1974, the Nova SS was running on fumes. Of reputation, not performance. The body had been facelifted with blockier lines, larger bumpers, and a squarer stance thanks to federal crash standards. It looked heavier because it was over 3,500 pounds, and yet it still wore SS badging, rally stripes, and sport wheels. The base engine? A tame 350 cubic inch small block V8, producing 155 horsepower. That was a far cry from the tire-melting 396S of earlier years. Buyers could no longer get the big block, and the 4-speed manual was fading fast from order sheets. Despite its styling, blackout grille, rally wheels, SS decals, the '74 Nova SS was slower than many economy cars of the time. With the automatic transmission, it lumbered from 0 to 60 in 10.5 to 11 seconds, and the quarter mile was a mid-17-second cruise. It looked like a muscle car, but drove like a Malibu commuter. Still, it outsold its performance. Around 20,000 SS units were produced that year, mostly to nostalgic buyers hanging on to the last gasps of the muscle car era. For decades, this Nova was forgotten, overlooked at shows, dismissed in magazines, and parted out to build earlier models. But recently, collectors have started embracing the underdog. Clean SS 350S now fetch $20,000, $30,000, especially unrestored survivors with matching numbers. The sleeper look, suddenly in style again. But while the Nova SS hit its decline behind bold lettering, Chevy's next coupe didn't even try, trading performance for padded roofs, opera windows, and the softest ride this side of a waterbed. Top 9, 1973 Chevrolet Monte Carlo Landau. It had the size of a muscle car, the stance of a grand tourer, and the acceleration of a sofa. The 1973 Monte Carlo Landau marked the beginning of the second-generation Monte, longer, heavier, and stuffed with more vinyl and chrome than ever before. This was GM's golden child of personal luxury. Opera windows, vinyl roofs, Landau badges, and deep pile carpet. Under the hood? Most buyers got the 350 or 400 CI small block V8, making 175 horsepower, though a 454 big block was available in limited numbers. But even the 454 couldn't save this 4,000-pound cruiser from its comfort-first suspension, tall gearing, and emissions-choked lungs. Despite its size and available displacement, the Monte Carlo Landau wasn't about speed. It took 10-11 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour with the 350, and the quarter mile came in the 17S. Buyers didn't seem to mind. They were here for the ride, the style, and the soft glow of faux wood grain. GM sold over 250,000 Monte Carlos in 1973, but only a fraction were big block Landaus, and fewer still survived intact. For decades, these cars were worth less than the cost of storing them, but nostalgia and rarity have shifted things. Today, well-preserved Landau coupes with factory V8S and original trim can command $15,000, $25,000, especially if they have the swivel bucket seats or rally gauge clusters. It's no longer mocked, it's admired as peak 1970 American indulgence. And while the Monte Carlo bathed in chrome, Oldsmobile's final entry tried to play both sides. 442 badges, formal styling, and just enough performance to confuse everyone who thought muscle was dead. Top 10 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass Salon 442. When you hear 442, you think brute force, but in 1976, it was more vinyl than violence. The 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass Salon 442 was a final gasp of muscle nostalgia in a world now obsessed with comfort. Instead of bold scoops or hood stripes, this 442 came dressed in Colonnade Coupe Form A, semi-formal body with a vinyl top, optional opera windows, and chrome-trimmed everything. Power came from either a 260 Ci V8, a 350, or if you were lucky, a 400 or 455 Ci V8, though none of them were close to their pre-1972 glory. Even the top dog 455 only made 190-200 horsepower, and most 442S were ordered with the smaller engines. The 442 package didn't even guarantee performance. It was mostly appearance-based: badging, sport mirrors, special suspension, and dual exhaust. You could even order it with bench seats and column shift. 0 to 60? Try 10.5 seconds with the 350, slower with the 260. And the 442 name? It no longer stood for 4-barrel, 4-speed, dual exhaust. It was just marketing déjà vu. Roughly 9,500 units of the 442 Salon variant were produced in 1976. Most were daily driven, rusted out, or forgotten entirely by the mid-80s, but today, collectors are digging deep for oddballs. And this version of the 442, in clean condition with rare factory options like rally gauges or the W30 suspension, is now worth $18,000, $25,000. Not fast, not famous, but absolutely one of a kind. The 1976 Cutlass Salon 442 closed the book on an era not with a roar, but with a whisper wrapped in chrome and pinstriped vinyl. A final, awkward chapter in a once-feared nameplate's long, complicated legacy. They weren't built to win beauty contests, but time had other plans. These misfit GM machines, once mocked and misunderstood, are now museum pieces, garage queens, and auction sleepers. Because in the world of classic cars, the weird always finds its moment. Which one shocked you most? Drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around at Top 5 Classic Cars. We don't just chase horsepower. We hunt the forgotten freaks of American muscle history.